The morning sun peeked through the clouds as 16-year-old Tiana Johnson fastened her bicycle helmet. She checked her watch and smiled, knowing she had plenty of time to make it to her first period history class. Her mother had spent 3 hours last night braiding her hair into an intricate pattern that celebrated their family's heritage, and Tiana couldn't wait to show her friends. "Got everything, sweetheart?" Her mother called from the kitchen. "Yes, Mom," Tiana replied, adjusting her backpack. "Chemistry textbook, lunch, and my presentation notes. Don't forget they're taking yearbook photos today." Tiana grinned.
"How could I forget?"
"That's why you did my hair so nice." The weight of her braids felt reassuring against her back as she pedaled down Maple Street, the familiar rhythm of her bike wheels spinning beneath her. She hummed along to a song playing in her earbuds, feeling good about the day ahead. At the four-way stop near Westfield High, Tiana paused and looked both ways. The crossing guard, Mrs. Wilson, waved and smiled at her. "Looking beautiful today, Tiana. Those braids are gorgeous." "Thank you," Tiana called back, feeling a warm glow of pride. Her mother had taught her the cultural significance of each braiding pattern, carrying forward traditions that stretched back generations. As she turned onto Oak Avenue, a police cruiser pulled alongside her with its lights flashing. Tiana's stomach dropped. She hadn't done anything wrong, had she? She carefully pulled over to the side of the road and stopped her bike, removing one earbud. Officer Ryan Hayes stepped out of the cruiser. His face looked hard, and something about his expression made Tiana's skin prickle with unease. "License and registration," he said curtly. Tiana blinked in confusion. I don't have those. I'm just riding my bike to school." The officer's eyes narrowed. "You ran that stop sign back there?" "No, sir," Tiana replied politely, though her heart was beginning to race. "I stopped completely. Mrs. Wilson, the crossing guard, saw me." The officer ignored her explanation. "What school do you attend?" "Westfield High. I'm a junior there." He walked a slow circle around her bicycle, his eyes scanning her as if looking for something. When he came back to face her, his gaze fixed on her helmet. "Remove that," he ordered. Tiana hesitated. "My helmet?" "Yes, now." With shaking hands, Tiana unbuckled her helmet and lifted it off. Her braids fell free, arranged in the careful pattern her mother had created. Officer Hayes's expression changed. "What's all this?" he asked, gesturing at her hair. "Just my braids, sir," Tiana explained, increasingly uncomfortable. Several people had stopped to watch the interaction, including Mr. Reynolds, who owned the coffee shop on the corner. "Turn around," the officer commanded. Tiana complied, fear creeping into her chest. She could hear him speaking into his radio, though she couldn't make out the words. "I need to check your hair," he announced when she turned back to face him. "My hair? Why?" Tiana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've had reports of students hiding contraband in elaborate hairstyles," Officer Hayes stated flatly. There was something in his tone that didn't sound right, as if he'd just made up the reason. "I don't have anything in my hair," Tiana protested. "It's just braids. My mom did them last night for yearbook photos." The officer's face hardened. "If you have nothing to hide, you won't mind me checking." More people had gathered now. Someone had their phone out recording the interaction. Tiana felt tears threatening to spill, but tried to stay composed. "Please, can I call my mom?" she asked. "No," he said sharply. "This will just take a minute if you cooperate." Without warning, Officer Hayes reached out and grabbed one of her braids, tugging it roughly. Tiana gasped in pain. "Please stop," she begged. "You're hurting me." The officer ignored her plea. "Something feels suspicious here," he muttered, though nothing about his tone suggested genuine concern. He returned to his cruiser and came back with something in his hand. Tiana's eyes widened in horror as she realized what it was. A pair of scissors. "What are you doing?" she cried, taking a step back. "You can't cut my hair." "Stand still," Officer Hayes ordered. "This is a police inspection. No." Tiana backed away further, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "Please no. My mom spent hours on these braids. They're important to us. Please don't." Mr. Reynolds stepped forward from the growing crowd. "Officer, I don't think this is appropriate. That's just a young girl's hair. Stay back," the officer shouted. "This is police business. Interfere and I'll arrest you for obstruction." Mr. Reynolds hesitated but didn't retreat completely. More phones were out now, recording everything. Tiana tried once more. "Please, sir. My braids don't have anything hidden in them. They're just braids. Can I please call my mom?" Something dark flashed across Officer Hayes's face. Without another word, he grabbed Tiana's arm and spun her around, then began cutting her braids off at different lengths. The shock paralyzed Tiana for a moment before she began sobbing in earnest. "Stop, please stop," she cried as her carefully crafted braids, symbols of her heritage and her mother's love, fell to the sidewalk around her feet. The crowd had grown larger, their murmurs turning to shouts of outrage. "This isn't right. Someone call the police station. Keep recording, don't stop recording." Through her tears, Tiana could see at least 7 people with phones pointed at them, documenting the officer's actions. A woman was on her phone, her voice urgent as she apparently spoke with someone at the police department. Officer Hayes seemed to become more aggressive as the crowd's disapproval grew louder. He cut faster, more carelessly, occasionally nicking Tiana's scalp and causing her to cry out in pain. "Please," she whimpered. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer, continuing his destruction until a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. A second police cruiser pulled up, and an older officer stepped out. The name on his uniform read, Sergeant Thomas Walker. His eyes widened as he took in the scene, the crying teenage girl, the scattered braids on the ground, the scissors in Officer Hayes's hand, and the outraged crowd recording everything. "Hayes, stand down immediately," Sergeant Walker commanded. Officer Hayes froze, scissors still in hand. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Sergeant Walker approached quickly. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" Before Hayes could answer, Mr. Reynolds stepped forward, phone still recording. He said he was checking her hair for contraband, then started cutting it off when she protested. "She's just a kid going to school." She begged him to stop. The sergeant's face darkened as he looked at the braids scattered on the sidewalk and Tiana's uneven, partially destroyed hairstyle. He turned to Hayes. "Give me those scissors, now." As Officer Hayes surrendered the scissors, Tiana sank down to the curb, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The woman who had been on the phone earlier approached her, draping a light cardigan around Tiana's shoulders. "I called your mother, honey," she said gently. "She's on her way. And I also called the police chief directly. I work at City Hall. This is not how our police are supposed to behave." Sergeant Walker was on his radio now, his voice tight with controlled anger. Another police car arrived, followed by an unmarked vehicle. A man in a suit stepped out. The lieutenant from the precinct, Tiana would later learn. Someone handed Tiana a bottle of water. She drank it slowly, trying to calm her breathing as she watched Sergeant Walker confer with the lieutenant, both men occasionally glancing at her with expressions of concern and dismay. She heard snippets of their conversation. Completely unauthorized, immediate suspension, civil rights violation. The crowd had not dispersed. If anything, it had grown larger, with many people approaching Tiana to offer words of support or express their outrage at what they'd witnessed. A familiar car screeched to a halt nearby, and Tiana's mother burst out, her face a mask of fear and fury. When she saw her daughter's hair, she let out a cry that pierced the morning air. "My baby, what did they do to you?" She gathered Tiana in her arms, rocking her gently as both of them cried. Over her mother's shoulder, Tiana watched as Sergeant Walker approached Officer Hayes, speaking in low, forceful tones. The officer's face had lost its arrogant certainty, replaced by something that looked like dawning horror at what he had done and what was about to happen to him. The lieutenant joined them, holding out his hand. "Badge and gun, Hayes, right now." As Tiana buried her face in her mother's shoulder, she heard the sounds of handcuffs clicking shut. The crowd outside had doubled in size in just minutes. People held their phones high, capturing every moment as Tiana's mother, Letitia Johnson, cradled her daughter on the curb. The scattered braids on the sidewalk told a story that no one could ignore. "Look at me, baby," Letitia said, gently tilting Tiana's tear-streaked face. "I'm going to fix this. I promise you." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as they hovered over Tiana's mutilated hair. 20 feet away, Officer Hayes stood handcuffed beside a police cruiser, his face drained of color as Lieutenant Garcia spoke in hushed, urgent tones with Sergeant Walker. The words "immediate arrest" and "criminal charges" floated across the morning air. Mr. Reynolds approached Letitia and Tiana, coffee shop apron still tied around his waist. "Ms. Johnson, I recorded the whole thing from the moment he pulled her over. I've already sent the video to the news stations. This can't be swept under the rug. Thank you, Letitia whispered, her eyes never leaving her daughter's face. More police vehicles arrived, along with a news van from Channel 8. A reporter jumped out, microphone in hand, but kept a respectful distance when she saw Tiana's condition. Sergeant Walker approached the Johnsons, removing his hat. Ms. Johnson, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am that this happened. There is absolutely no procedure, policy, or justification for what Officer Hayes did today. None whatsoever. Letitia looked up, her eyes fierce despite the tears swimming in them. Then why did he do it? And why was he able to do it? Before the sergeant could answer, a sleek black car pulled up. A woman in a sharp navy suit stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. That's our lawyer, Letitia said, her voice suddenly stronger. I called her on my way here. The attorney, Mrs. Andrea Chen, walked directly to Tiana and Letitia, ignoring the police officers who tried to intercept her. Don't say another word to any of them, she instructed quietly, kneeling beside the pair. Then she turned to Sergeant Walker. My clients will be making a formal statement after medical treatment. In the meantime, I expect Officer Hayes to remain in custody. Lieutenant Garcia stepped forward. We've already begun processing charges of assault, civil rights violations, and official misconduct. The chief is on his way personally. As if on cue, another vehicle arrived, this one with official city markings. The police chief, Bernard Thompson, emerged, his face grave as he surveyed the scene. Mr. Reynolds was already walking toward him, phone extended. Chief Thompson, you need to see this now. The chief's expression darkened as he watched the video. When he looked up, his eyes found Tiana immediately. He walked over, every step measured and deliberate. Young lady, he said, his voice softened with genuine concern. I want you to know that what happened to you today is not what we stand for, not as a department, not as officers sworn to protect this community, and not as human beings. Tiana looked up, her eyes still wet, but now burning with a question. Then why did he do it? The chief had no easy answer. I don't know. But I promise you this, we will find out and he will face consequences. Mrs. Chen stepped between them. My client needs medical attention. There are lacerations on her scalp. Of course, the chief nodded. We have an ambulance on the way. But if you prefer to use your own transportation, I want to take my daughter myself, Letitia interrupted. I don't want her in an ambulance like she did something wrong. Understood, the chief replied. We'll need statements, but that can wait until she's been treated. As they helped Tiana to her feet, her classmates began arriving. The incident had happened just 2 blocks from Westfield High, and word had spread quickly. A group of girls rushed forward, their faces shocked at the sight of their friend. Tiana, her best friend Zoe, cried out. Oh my God, what happened to you? Tiana couldn't find words, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Back up, please, Mrs. Chen instructed the gathering crowd. Give them some space. As they walked toward Letitia's car, Tiana suddenly stopped and turned around. My bike, she said quietly, and my backpack. My history presentation is in there. The simple concern, so normal, so teenage, hit Letitia like a physical blow. Her daughter had just suffered a traumatic assault, and she was worried about her homework. I've got your things, Sergeant Walker said, carrying her bicycle while another officer brought her backpack and helmet. We'll need these as evidence, but we'll make sure you get copies of your schoolwork. The reality of those words, evidence, seemed to echo in the morning air. Inside Letitia's car, the outside world became muffled. Tiana leaned her head against the window, her reflection a painful reminder of what had just happened. Mom, she whispered as they pulled away from the curb. Everyone saw. Everyone's going to see. Letitia reached across to squeeze her daughter's hand. Yes, and that's why he's already in handcuffs. Because people saw, and people cared, and people acted. Their family doctor, Dr. Patel, was waiting when they arrived at the medical center, having received an urgent call from Letitia during her drive to the scene. He guided them directly to an examination room, bypassing the usual wait. Let's take a look, Tiana, he said gently, putting on gloves. I'll be very careful. As Dr. Patel examined the cuts on her scalp, a nurse photographed each injury. More evidence. Tiana winced occasionally but remained silent, her eyes fixed on a point on the wall. You'll need a couple of stitches for this deeper cut, Dr. Patel explained. The rest should heal with proper care. There will be no permanent physical damage. The unspoken words hung in the air. The emotional damage was another matter entirely. While Dr. Patel worked, Letitia stepped out to take a call. When she returned, her expression had shifted from grief to determined focus. "The video is everywhere," she told Tiana. "It's already on 3 news stations and all over social media. The police department has scheduled a press conference for noon." Tiana nodded slowly. "Good." It was the first word she'd spoken in nearly 20 minutes. "Mrs. Chen says the district attorney wants to speak with us," Letitia continued. "She's on her way here now." As Dr. Patel finished the last stitch, there was a knock at the door. A woman in a charcoal gray suit entered after Letitia's nod of permission. "Tiana? I'm District Attorney Helen Wong," she said, her voice gentle but her eyes sharp with purpose. "I'm so sorry about what happened to you today." Tiana looked at her, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time since the incident. "Are you going to arrest him? For real?" "He's already under arrest," D.A. Wong confirmed. "I'm here because I wanted to tell you personally that I'll be handling your case myself. What happened to you wasn't just wrong, it was criminal." Letitia straightened in her chair. "What charges?" "Assault, battery, civil rights violations, official misconduct, and deprivation of rights under color of law," the DA listed. "The FBI has also been notified about potential federal charges." The weight of those official terms seemed to settle something in Tiana. Her shoulders straightened slightly. "I want to make a statement," she said. Suddenly, both her mother and the DA looked at her in surprise. "You don't have to do that right now," Letitia said carefully. "I know, but I want to." Tiana's voice grew stronger with each word. "People need to hear it from me, not just see it in a video." D.A. Wong nodded slowly. "That's very brave, but only if you feel ready." "I'm not ready," Tiana admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." While Dr. Patel finished bandaging her cuts, Mrs. Chen arrived with news. The police chief had called an emergency meeting with the police union. Officer Hayes had been officially fired, an almost unheard of immediate dismissal without the usual administrative processes. "That fast?" Letitia asked in disbelief. "The video left them no choice," Mrs. Chen explained. "They're in damage control mode." By the time they left the medical center, a small group of supporters had gathered outside. Signs hastily made on notebook paper and cardboard read, "Justice for Tiana and protect our children." One of the local barbers, Mr. Washington, stepped forward. "Tiana, my shop is offering free services to help fix your hair. Whenever you're ready." "No rush, no pressure." 3 other stylists from around town nodded in agreement beside him. "Thank you," Tiana managed, touched by the gesture. At the police station, the crowd was much larger and growing by the minute. As Letitia's car approached, officers cleared a path to a side entrance. Inside, they were led to a quiet conference room where the chief, the DA, and several other officials waited. On a large screen, they could see the press gathered in another room, cameras ready. "Tiana," Chief Thompson said, "you don't have to do this. We can issue a statement on your behalf." Tiana looked at her mother, who gave her a small, proud nod. "I want to speak," she said, "but I have one condition." "What's that?" the chief asked. "I want to see him first. Officer Hayes. I want to look him in the eye before I talk about what he did to me." The adults exchanged glances, silently considering her request. "Is that possible?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Legally speaking?" De Wong thought for a moment. "He's in holding. We could arrange a monitored confrontation if both parties consent." 10 minutes later, Tiana stood outside an interview room, her mother and attorney on either side of her. Through the window, she could see Officer Hayes sitting at a table, still in uniform but without his badge or belt, his hands cuffed in front of him. "You don't have to do this," Letitia whispered one last time. "Yes, I do," Tiana replied, and with a deep breath she opened the door to face the man who had violated her dignity, but not her spirit. The interview room felt smaller than it looked from outside. Tiana stepped through the doorway, her mother and Mrs. Chen right behind her. Officer Hayes looked up, his face unreadable at first, then flickering with something like surprise when he saw the damage he'd done to her hair up close. Tiana didn't sit. She stood across the table from him, her bandaged scalp visible under the harsh fluorescent lights. For a long moment she said nothing, just looked at him, the man who had taken something from her that went deeper than hair. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice steadier than she felt inside. "What did I do to make you do this to me?" Officer Hayes looked down at his cuffed hands. I don't have to speak to you without my union rep present. You don't have to, District Attorney Wong said from the doorway. But it might go better for you if you show some remorse. Hayes's jaw tightened. I was conducting a search based on nothing, Letitia cut in, her voice controlled but vibrating with anger. My daughter was riding her bike to school. You had no cause, no warrant, and no humanity. Tiana stepped closer to the table. I want to understand. Did you hate my hair? Did you hate what it represents? Or did you just hate me? The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Officer Hayes finally looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. I made a mistake, he said flatly. I misinterpreted a situation. A mistake, Tiana repeated slowly. Is that what you call this? She gestured to her uneven, partially shorn hair. You didn't misinterpret anything. I was a kid on a bike and you decided to hurt me. He flinched almost imperceptibly at her directness. You cut her until she bled, Letitia added, her voice rising slightly. Those weren't the actions of an officer making a mistake. That was cruelty. Officer Hayes looked away again, his shoulders tight with tension. I want my union representative now. Tiana straightened her spine, drawing herself up to her full height. You don't get to hide from what you did. It's on video. Everyone can see it. Everyone will know. As she turned to leave, Hayes finally spoke again, his voice lower. I'm sorry about your hair. Tiana paused in the doorway, not turning back. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. In the hallway outside, Chief Thompson was waiting with Sergeant Walker. Both men's faces showed a mixture of respect and concern when they saw Tiana. You ready for this? The chief asked gently. The press is waiting, but this can wait if you need more time. Tiana shook her head. I don't want to wait. I want to speak now while people are still listening. Mrs. Chen placed a hand on her shoulder. We've prepared a statement if you'd prefer to read something. No, Tiana said. I want to use my own words. They walked together down the corridor toward the room where the press conference was set up. Through the glass panels in the doors, Tiana could see cameras, microphones, and a room full of reporters. Her steps faltered briefly. You can do this, her mother whispered, squeezing her hand. But you don't have to. Tiana took a deep breath. I do have to, not just for me. When they entered the room, a hush fell over the assembled journalists. Flashbulbs popped, and Tiana blinked against the brightness. The chief guided her to a podium set up at the front, adjusting the microphone to her height. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I have a brief statement and then you'll hear from Tiana Johnson and her family. I want to make it absolutely clear that the actions of Officer Ryan Hayes this morning were completely unauthorized, violated multiple department policies, and constitute a serious criminal offense. He has been terminated from the police force effective immediately and is currently in custody facing multiple charges. We are cooperating fully with the district attorney's office. He stepped back, nodding to Tiana. She moved forward, her hands gripping the edges of the podium. The room was completely silent. My name is Tiana Johnson, she began, her voice small at first, then growing stronger. This morning I was riding my bike to school when Officer Hayes pulled me over. He said I ran a stop sign, which wasn't true. There were witnesses who saw me stop. She paused, gathering her thoughts. He made me take off my helmet, and then he became fixated on my braids. My mom had spent hours doing my hair last night for school pictures. These braids are part of our culture and heritage. They matter to us. The cameras clicked rapidly as she continued. Officer Hayes said he needed to check my hair for contraband. When I asked to call my mom, he refused. When I told him there was nothing in my hair, he got angry. Then he took out scissors from his car and started cutting off my braids while I begged him to stop. Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed on. He cut me. My scalp is bleeding. I needed stitches. But the physical pain isn't even the worst part. He took something from me that was important, not just my hair, but my sense of safety. My trust that the people who are supposed to protect us will do that, instead of hurting us. In the audience, several reporters wiped away tears. One woman in the front row nodded encouragement as Tiana continued. I'm 16 years old. I've never been in trouble. I'm in honors classes. I volunteer at the community center. I'm just a normal kid who wants to go to school without being afraid. And now I don't know if I can do that anymore. She straightened her shoulders, her voice finding new strength. But here's what I want everyone to know. What happened to me was wrong. It shouldn't happen to anyone. And the fact that Officer Hayes is already under arrest shows that when we stand up and speak out, things can change. When people recorded what was happening, when they called for help, when they refused to look away, that made a difference. Mrs. Chen stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on Tiana's back. I'll be working with the district attorney to make sure there is justice, Tiana concluded. Not just for me, but for anyone else who might have been treated this way. Thank you. The room erupted in questions, but Chief Thompson quickly moved to the microphone. Ms. Johnson has been through a traumatic experience and will not be taking questions at this time. District Attorney Wong will address the legal aspects of this case. As they moved away from the podium, a reporter called out, Tiana, how does it feel to know your case is already trending nationwide? Tiana paused, genuinely surprised. What? Mrs. Chen showed her a tablet with social media feeds displayed. The hashtag Justice for Tiana was trending, along with Protect Black Girls' Hair. Video clips of the incident had millions of views already, and celebrities were sharing messages of support. This happened less than 3 hours ago, Tiana whispered, overwhelmed by the rapid spread of her story. Back in a private conference room, D.A. Wong outlined the next steps. Officer Hayes will be formally charged and arraigned this afternoon. Given the video evidence and witness statements, we're moving quickly. The judge has already denied any possibility of release on his own recognizance. What does that mean? Tiana asked. It means he'll remain in custody unless he can post bail, which I'll be requesting be set very high, Wong explained. We take this case extremely seriously. Chief Thompson nodded in agreement. The department is conducting an internal investigation into whether Hayes has prior incidents that might show a pattern of behavior. We've already pulled his record and are interviewing other officers who worked with him. Sergeant Walker, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. Tiana, I want you to know that most officers are as horrified by this as everyone else. What he did goes against everything we're trained to do. Tiana looked at him thoughtfully. Thank you for stopping him, for believing me. You didn't need me to believe you, Walker replied honestly. The evidence was right there. All I did was what any decent officer would do. A knock at the door interrupted them. An assistant entered with a tablet. Chief, you might want to see this. The mayor is making a statement. They gathered around the screen to watch as Mayor Gloria Diaz stood on the steps of City Hall, her expression grave. Today, our community witnessed an unconscionable act by someone who had sworn to protect and serve, the mayor was saying. The assault on young Tiana Johnson by a police officer represents a profound breach of trust that we must address head-on. She continued, I have spoken with Tiana's family to express my personal outrage and to assure them that the city stands with them. I am announcing the immediate formation of a special task force to review police conduct policies, with a focus on interactions with minors and respect for cultural expressions, including hairstyles. The mayor looked directly into the camera. To our young people, especially our young people of color, you deserve to feel safe in your community. You deserve to express your cultural identity without fear. And you deserve better than what happened today. We will do better. She ended by announcing that Letitia Johnson had been invited to serve as a civilian member of the new task force, bringing her valuable perspective as both a community advocate and as a mother. Tiana looked at her mother in surprise. Letitia seemed equally taken aback. They move fast when they're scared of lawsuits, Mrs. Chen remarked dryly. But Letitia was thoughtful. No, this could be good. Real change happens from the inside. If they're actually willing to listen, I want to be in the room. Another knock at the door revealed Mr. Washington, the barber who had offered his services earlier. He wasn't alone. With him were 3 hairstylists carrying professional cases of supplies. Excuse the interruption, he said politely to the officials gathered in the room, but we thought Tiana might want some help before she goes back out there. One of the stylists stepped forward, her expression kind. We can't fix everything today, but we can help make it more even. Cover the bandages, make you feel a little more comfortable. Only if you want, of course. For the first time since the morning, Tiana's face softened with something close to relief. Yes, please. I'd like that. The officials stepped out to give them privacy. In their absence, the stylists worked quickly but carefully, trimming the uneven cuts, applying a gentle treatment to her scalp around the bandages, and creating a style that incorporated what remained of her braids into something new. As they worked, Tiana's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends and classmates. Zoe had organized a student walkout for tomorrow in support. The yearbook committee had sent a note saying they would wait to take her photos when she felt ready. "There," the lead stylist said finally, holding up a mirror. "What do you think?" Tiana looked at her reflection. The new style was shorter than she'd ever worn her hair, but it framed her face beautifully. More importantly, it looked intentional, chosen, not something that had been forcibly taken from her. "It's not what I had before," she said quietly, "but it's still me." When she emerged from the conference room, reporters who had lingered outside the station captured her transformation. The images of Tiana standing tall with her new hairstyle, her mother beside her, would be on every news channel by evening, a powerful contrast to the crying, wounded girl from the morning videos. By evening, the city had transformed. What began as one terrible incident on a quiet street corner had sparked something much larger. As Tiana and her mother drove home from the police station, they could see it happening around them. On the courthouse steps, a group of protesters held signs reading, "Justice for Tiana and Protect Black Girls." Outside the main police precinct, a larger crowd had gathered, their voices rising in unified chants. Local news vans were parked at both locations, reporters doing live broadcasts against the backdrop of growing community action. "I didn't expect all this," Tiana said quietly, watching through the car window. "People recognize injustice when they see it," Letitia replied. "And what happened to you was so clearly wrong that no one can look away." As they turned onto their street, Tiana gasped. Their front yard was filled with neighbors, friends, and classmates. Someone had hung a banner across the porch that read, "We stand with Tiana." Tables were set up with food and drinks. Music played softly from a portable speaker. "What's all this?" Tiana asked, her voice catching. "Community," Letitia answered simply, tears shining in her eyes. As they parked, Zoe rushed to the car, along with several other classmates from Westfield High. Their history teacher, Mrs. Rivera, was there too, clipboard in hand as she organized something with a group of parents. "Tiana," Zoe embraced her friend carefully. "We wanted you to know you're not alone." Mrs. Rivera approached, her kind face serious. "The school board had an emergency meeting this afternoon. They've released a statement supporting you and condemning what happened. There won't be any attendance issues if you need time away from classes." "Thank you," Letitia said. "That means a lot." "We've also rescheduled yearbook photos," Zoe added. "The whole junior class voted to wait until you're ready." Tiana was overwhelmed by the support, but still felt self-conscious about her new, shorter hairstyle. She touched it hesitantly. An older woman approached, her gray hair styled in an elegant twist. Ms. Porter had been the neighborhood matriarch for decades. "You look beautiful, child," she said firmly. "Hair grows back. Dignity is harder to repair, but you've shown more of it today than most adults do in a lifetime." Inside the house, their living room had been transformed into what Mrs. Chen jokingly called legal headquarters. 3 more attorneys from her firm had set up laptops on the dining table, fielding calls from media outlets and civil rights organizations offering support. The police union finally released a statement. One of the attorneys said, looking up from her screen. "They're not defending Hayes. In fact, they've condemned his actions and are distancing themselves completely." "That's unusual," Mrs. Chen remarked. "They typically close ranks." "The video was too damning," another attorney explained. "Even they couldn't spin this one." Letitia guided Tiana to the kitchen away from the legal discussions. "You need to eat something, baby. It's been hours." As Tiana picked at a plate of food a neighbor had brought, her phone buzzed with a notification. She looked down and froze. "Mom," she whispered. "That singer I love, she just posted about me." Letitia leaned over to see the screen. The international pop star had shared the video of the incident, along with a powerful message about the importance of protecting Black girls and respecting cultural expressions. She ended with a personal note to Tiana. "Your strength inspires me. Your voice matters. I'd love to meet you when my tour comes to your city next month. Justice for Tiana." The post already had millions of likes and shares. "Wow," Tiana breathed, momentarily forgetting the trauma of the day and the shock of being recognized by her idol. The doorbell rang again, and Letitia went to answer it. She returned with Dr. Patel, who had come to check on Tiana's stitches. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "Any dizziness?" Headache? Just tired, Tiana admitted, and a little sore. As Dr. Patel examined the bandages, the television in the living room suddenly grew louder. Someone had turned up the volume for the evening news. Breaking news in the case of Officer Ryan Hayes, who was arrested earlier today after being caught on video cutting a teenage girl's hair during what should have been a routine traffic stop. The news anchor announced, "We've just received word that Judge William Torres has set bail at $500,000, an unusually high amount that reflects the seriousness of the charges." The camera cut to the courthouse, where the district attorney was speaking to reporters. The defendant faces multiple serious charges, including assault, battery, civil rights violations, and official misconduct, D.A. Wong stated firmly. The high bail amount reflects both the severity of these charges and the overwhelming evidence against him. This case will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The reporter asked, "Is it true the FBI is now involved?" "Yes," Wong confirmed. "Federal authorities have opened their own investigation into potential civil rights violations. This is now being pursued at both the state and federal levels." The news cut to a brief clip of Officer Hayes being led from the courthouse in handcuffs, head down, flanked by court officers. He looked smaller somehow, his uniform replaced by standard jail attire. $500,000, one of the attorneys whistled. "He's not going anywhere." Mrs. Chen nodded with satisfaction. "Judge Torres sent a message with that bail amount. This isn't just another case that will disappear into the system." Dr. Patel finished checking Tiana's stitches and gave Letitia instructions for care. As he prepared to leave, he paused. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I've treated many injuries over the years, but what happened to you today?" He shook his head. "Sometimes the most serious wounds aren't physical. If you feel you might benefit from talking to someone, I know an excellent therapist who specializes in trauma." Tiana nodded, grateful for his understanding. "Thank you. Maybe in a few days once things calm down." But things didn't calm down. By the next morning, the story had gone international. Tiana woke to find her mother in the kitchen with Mrs. Chen, both looking at a tablet displaying news sites from around the world. The incident had touched a nerve that resonated far beyond their city. "Good morning," Letitia said, trying to sound normal. "How did you sleep?" "Off and on," Tiana admitted. She'd had nightmares about scissors and falling braids, waking several times in the darkness. Her phone had hundreds of notifications, messages from friends, but also from strangers offering support from across the country and around the world. Hashtags related to her case were still trending, now accompanied by a broader conversation about police conduct and cultural respect. "The school called," Letitia said. "They're supporting the student walkout today, but they want to make sure it stays peaceful. So we asked if you might want to speak." Tiana bit her lip. "I don't know if I'm ready to go back yet." "You don't have to," Letitia assured her. "Not until you feel ready." Mrs. Chen looked up from her tablet. "There's something else you should know. Several major civil rights organizations have reached out. They want to help with your case, but they're also interested in using it as a platform for broader change." "What kind of change?" Tiana asked. "Legislative change," Mrs. Chen explained. "They're already drafting a bill that would specifically protect cultural hairstyles and expressions from discrimination. Some are calling it Tiana's Law." Tiana sat down, the weight of that possibility settling on her shoulders. Yesterday she'd been a normal high school student. Today people were talking about a law named after her. I don't even know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything right now," Letitia assured her. "This is all happening very fast." "Too fast?" Mrs. Chen asked gently. Tiana thought for a moment. "No," she said finally. "Not too fast. What happened to me was wrong. If something good can come from it, some protection so this doesn't happen to someone else, then I want that." The doorbell rang. Again, another in the steady stream of visitors that had started the previous evening and showed no signs of stopping. This time it was Sergeant Walker, not in uniform but in plain clothes. He looked uncomfortable as Letitia led him to the kitchen. "I hope it's okay that I stopped by," he said. "I wanted to give you an update personally rather than having you hear it on the news." "What is it?" Letitia asked. "We've been investigating Hayes's record," Walker explained. "There were previous complaints that were dismissed or buried. 3 from black women about aggressive behavior during traffic stops. Nothing as extreme as what happened to Tiana, but clear warning signs that were ignored." Tiana felt a chill. "So this could have been prevented?" Walker nodded grimly. If those complaints had been taken seriously, yes. The Internal Affairs Division is now reviewing all dismissed complaints against officers from the past 5 years. The chief asked me to tell you that he's implementing immediate changes to how complaints are processed. It shouldn't have taken what happened to my daughter to make those changes, Letitia said, her voice tight with controlled anger. No, it shouldn't have, Walker agreed. The system failed, we failed, and we're trying to fix that now. After he left, Tiana sat at the kitchen table, turning over everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Mom, she said finally, I think I want to speak at the school today. Letitia studied her daughter's face. Are you sure? No one would blame you if you wanted to stay home. I'm sure, Tiana said, her voice growing stronger. What's the point of all this attention if I don't use it to say something important? I want to talk to my friends, my classmates. I want them to understand what happened and why it matters. Mrs. Chen, who had been listening quietly, nodded with approval. Your voice is powerful, Tiana. People are listening. As Tiana went to get dressed, choosing her outfit carefully for what would be a very public appearance, Letitia turned to Mrs. Chen. Do you think the attention will fade? She asked quietly. Will people move on to the next outrage and forget about what happened to her? Mrs. Chen considered the question. Some will, that's inevitable. But what's happening now, the policy changes, the proposed legislation, those could create lasting impact. And Tiana herself has shown remarkable strength. Whatever happens next, I think she's going to be okay. Through the window, they could see more people arriving, community members bringing food, reporters hoping for statements, and ordinary citizens simply wanting to show support. The street had become a gathering place for people united by their desire for justice and change. Look at that, Letitia said softly. Out of something terrible has come something, not beautiful exactly, but powerful. Mrs. Chen nodded. That's how change happens sometimes. Not because we choose it, but because we rise to meet the moment when it chooses us. 3 months passed. Summer arrived, bringing warm days and new beginnings. Tiana's hair had grown out enough that she could style it in short twists, which she wore proudly as she walked up the courthouse steps. Today was the day she would testify. You ready? Her mother asked, squeezing her hand. Tiana nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the back rows, while the front was reserved for Tiana's family, friends, and supporters. Mrs. Chen sat at the prosecution table alongside District Attorney Wang, both women reviewing notes one final time before proceedings began. Officer Hayes sat at the defense table, wearing a suit that seemed slightly too large for him. He looked diminished somehow, a far cry from the intimidating figure who had wielded scissors that spring morning. His attorney leaned close, whispering something in his ear. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Torres entered. The trial had been expedited, unusual for the normally slow justice system. The overwhelming video evidence and public pressure had pushed the case forward at record speed. Today was day 3, and Tiana was the prosecution's final witness. When her name was called, she walked to the witness stand with measured steps. She had practiced this moment with Mrs. Chen, rehearsed what she would say and how she would say it. But nothing could fully prepare her for the weight of all those eyes watching, waiting for her words. Please state your name for the record, the court clerk requested. Tiana Marie Johnson. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do. De Wong approached, her manner gentle but professional. Tiana, can you tell the court what happened on the morning of April 15th? Taking a deep breath, Tiana recounted the events. The bike ride to school, being pulled over, the escalation that led to Officer Hayes cutting her hair while she begged him to stop. Her voice remained steady, even as she described the pain of the scissors cutting her scalp. He didn't stop, she said, looking directly at the jury. Even when I was crying, even when I was bleeding, even when people were yelling at him to stop, he just kept cutting. In the gallery, someone stifled a sob. And how did this incident affect you? Wong asked. Tiana considered the question. At first I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it was happening. Then I was scared and humiliated. But after that came anger and then determination. Determination to do what? To make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, Tiana replied. To use what happened to me to create change. Wong nodded, then turned to the defense. Your witness. Hayes' attorney approached cautiously. Public sentiment was overwhelmingly against his client. and he seemed aware that aggressive questioning of Tiana could backfire badly. "Ms. Johnson," he began, "first, let me express my personal regret for what you experienced that day." Tiana just looked at him, waiting for the actual question. "Would you agree that my client stopped his actions when Sergeant Walker arrived on scene?" "Yes," Tiana acknowledged. "After he had already cut off most of my braids and cut my scalp in several places." The attorney shifted uncomfortably. "No further questions, Your Honor." When Tiana stepped down from the witness stand, she felt lighter somehow. The weight of the unspoken had been lifted from her shoulders, placed into the official record for all to hear. Back in her seat beside her mother, she watched as the attorneys made their closing arguments. Wong was powerful and direct, pointing repeatedly to the video evidence that showed the clear assault. Hayes's attorney attempted to frame the incident as a misunderstanding and a momentary lapse in judgment, rather than a malicious act. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they filed back into the courtroom, the foreperson handed a slip of paper to the judge. Torres read it, his expression giving nothing away. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" he asked. "We have, Your Honor," the foreperson replied, standing. "On the charge of assault in the second degree, how do you find?" "We find the defendant guilty." "On the charge of battery, how do you find?" "Guilty." One by one, the charges were read, and one by one, the jury found Hayes guilty. Civil rights violations, official misconduct, deprivation of rights under color of law. Tiana watched Hayes's face as the verdicts were read. He showed little reaction, just a slight tightening around his mouth, a small slump of his shoulders. She felt no joy in his conviction, only a sense that justice had been properly served. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them, microphones thrust forward, cameras flashing. "How do you feel about the verdict, Tiana?" a reporter called out. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I feel like the system worked the way it's supposed to. What happened to me was wrong, and the court recognized that. I hope this sends a message that no one is above the law, especially those sworn to uphold it." Later that evening, at home, the family gathered in the living room with close friends and supporters. The mood was one of relief rather than celebration. Justice had been done, but it couldn't erase what had happened. Tiana's phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Chen. "Turn on Channel 8, right?" Now she grabbed the remote and switched on the TV. The state governor was holding a press conference. "Today, I am proud to sign into law the Cultural Expression Protection Act, known commonly as Tiana's Law," the governor announced. "This legislation explicitly prohibits discrimination based on hairstyles and cultural expressions in schools, workplaces, and all public services, including interactions with law enforcement." The camera panned to show a diverse group of legislators standing behind the governor, all wearing pins that read "Justice for Tiana." This bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. The governor continued, demonstrating that protecting citizens' rights to cultural expression is not a partisan issue, but a human one. The courage of one young woman brought this issue to our attention, and her advocacy has created lasting change. Tiana felt tears well up in her eyes. Her mother wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "You did that," Letitia whispered. "Your voice did that." 2 weeks later, Sergeant Walker, now Lieutenant Walker, stood before a classroom of police cadets at the academy. A new training module had been developed, focusing on cultural sensitivity and appropriate use of force. Tiana had been invited to help create it. "The oath to protect and serve means exactly that," Walker told the cadets. "It doesn't come with exceptions or personal prejudices. The moment we put on this badge, we accept a responsibility to treat every community member with dignity and respect." He clicked to the next slide in his presentation, showing a photograph of Tiana from the press conference after Hayes's conviction. Her short hair had been styled beautifully, her expression one of quiet strength. "The case of Officer Hayes and Tiana Johnson changed our department forever," Walker continued. "It exposed failures in our training, our oversight, and our culture. The reforms we've implemented as a result will help ensure nothing like this happens again." After the training session, Walker met Tiana in the hallway. She had been observing from a small room next door, evaluating the effectiveness of the new curriculum. "What did you think?" he asked. "It's a good start," she replied thoughtfully. "But it's just that, a start." Walker nodded in agreement. "Change doesn't happen overnight. but it is happening. On the other side of town, in the community center where Tiana had volunteered since she was 13, a new program was taking shape. The Tiana Johnson Youth Advocacy Group brought together teenagers from across the city to learn about civil rights, community organizing, and how to use their voices effectively. Tiana stood before the first cohort of 20 students, all between 14 and 18 years old. "My story caught people's attention because it was caught on video," she told them. "But there are so many injustices that happen every day that don't go viral, that don't make the news. Our job is to shine a light on those stories too, to make sure every voice is heard." A young girl in the front row raised her hand. "But what if no one listens?" Tiana smiled. "Then we speak louder. We organize, we vote. We run for office ourselves someday. Change isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create together." As summer turned to fall, Tiana prepared for her senior year of high school. College applications were spread across her desk, including several from prestigious law schools that had reached out to express interest in her future application. Her hair had grown longer, and she wore it in a style similar to the braids she'd had before the incident, though not exactly the same. It was a conscious choice, honoring her past while embracing her future. The night before school started, she stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting her new hairstyle. Her mother appeared in the doorway. "Beautiful," Letitia said. "Just like you." Tiana smiled at their reflection. "I've been thinking about what I want to say in my personal statement for college applications. I was afraid it would just be about what happened to me, that I'd be defined by being a victim. And now?" Letitia asked. "Now I see it differently," Tiana replied. "What happened to me that day was just one moment in my life. What's happened since, the law, the police reforms, the advocacy program, that's the real story. Not what was done to me, but what I helped create from it." Letitia smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "That's my girl." The next morning, Tiana rode her bike to school again. She paused at the same four-way stop where everything had changed months ago. Mrs. Wilson, the crossing guard, waved and smiled. "Looking beautiful today, Tiana. Those braids are gorgeous." "Thank you," Tiana called back, feeling once again the warm glow of pride in her heritage and her identity. But this time, as she pedaled onward, there was something new. A sense of ownership, not just of her hair and her culture, but of her power to create change in a world that wasn't always just. The future stretched before her like an open road, and she rode toward it with her head held high, unafraid of whatever might come next. Behind her, a patrol car slowed as it passed the intersection. The officer inside nodded respectfully, then continued on his route. The system wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was changing. And Tiana Johnson had helped make that happen. One girl, one moment of injustice, one voice raised in protest. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world.